Hey friends and welcome. My name is Dr. Heather Carden. I'm coming to you live from Ask Dr. Heather. As you're joining us, take me just a minute because I'm actually going to share this page. So I'm still new at figuring out how to share this. So give me just a second here. I know it's a Saturday on a holiday weekend. So many of you hopefully are not on your phones right now. You're actually maybe sitting by the lake, enjoying your family and friends, maybe playing some Frisbee or maybe fishing. So let me figure out this whole sharing thing here from my Ask Dr. Heather to my personal page. And I'll tell you, I was told many years ago, maybe 10 plus years ago, to keep your personal page, which is Heather Dewar Carden. That's where I actually post a lot of my family stuff. Keep it very separate from your business page, which is 10 years ago, it's at the Keto Doc. And I was told, don't do at the Keto Doc. Keto will be only around for just a little bit like paleo was. Do Ask Dr. Heather. That's a timeless page. Now it's kind of funny because keto is actually one of the top search words as we know and has been for the past 2 or 3 years. So I'm still trying to figure out how I actually share my current page right now. And maybe you guys know how to do it. Aha, I found it. So I'm going to share this to a page. So I do want you to know that this is absolutely meant to be shared. Today we're going to be talking about, let me see, share to a page. Sorry, guys. How do I share it just to myself? There I go. I'm sharing it. There we go. Post. Okay, so welcome. So today I'm actually going to do a little bit style different, but I'm going to start with this from a family member. Vivian sent this to me, which I think is appropriate for each and every one of you. This says, never give up. I know we're all on a different health journey, no matter where you're starting from, but I love this for each and every one of you. Never give up. Whether you are 5 years old trying to ride a bike or tie your shoe, or maybe you're in second grade trying to learn and spell, maybe you're fighting a disease of health and you're just trying to figure out where to go, I'm going to give you some tips and strategies. So today, like no other, I'm going to talk a little bit more about myself and about my journey and a little bit where I started from. I knew at a very early age I wanted to help people. I wanted to be a healthcare provider. I watched from the age of 5 to the age of 20, several of my family members actually pass away due to diseases of health excessiveness or diseases of health crisis, heart disease, cancer. At a very early age, my grandpa died when I was 5 years old. When I was 12 years old, I saw my aunt pass away due to heart disease. I saw my grandma struggle from cancer several different times before she finally passed away. I saw my mom fight rheumatoid arthritis, migraines growing up throughout my life. I saw my sister struggle with hormone dysregulation, also migraines and headaches throughout her life. She died of a pulmonary embolism at the very young age of 48 years old. So I saw these things happen. I also started working in a pharmacy at the age of 14, and I would see people coming in for one prescription a month. Next thing you know, they're taking another prescription for another prescription. Then next month they come in and they're taking another prescription to help another prescription to help another prescription. So I worked in a pharmacy from the age of 14 to actually my junior year in college. And next thing you know, now their pets are needed for a prescription. So I also was working in the cadaver lab. So I got the unique privilege of seeing what happened on the inside that you couldn't always tell from the outside. So a lot of these things really formulated where I am today in my practice. Then after practicing for well over 20 years, I got to put all those pieces of the puzzle together, and I'm still learning today about how do we help the inside from the outside, because there's some things that we all know today. You don't have to be a doctor to know this, but what are essential for life? We all know that we have to breathe. We have to breathe. We only can survive 2 or 3 minutes without breathing. So many of us are such a hyper fast stage that we're actually short breathing. We're not slowing down and breathing. Think of how many people are on a sleep apnea machine. How many people have anxiety? When you have anxiety, you're breathing very shortly, or people have ADHD, ADD, asthma. You're not getting the proper oxygen to the tissues of the cell, which also means we're not getting it to the brain. Or maybe you're feeding on the fuel source, and we'll get to this just a minute, glucose or carbohydrates. They actually are not a very efficient fuel source that deliver oxygen to the cells. We also know we need water. 79% of us are dehydrated. We can only go 3 days without water. Such a simple, free, easy tool, breathing and water, that can get us really, really far in life when we talking about health. Water, fatigue, headaches, constipation, a wrinkly skin. Think how much money is spent on on people on cosmetics and cosmetic surgery, and how much colon health can actually help by simply putting water into your body to help wash out toxins. And I will have to be a little silly here. I made a whole bunch of notes here. So back in the day when we opened up our practice, and I'll come back and read some of those notes, that when Dr. Ralph and I do practice alongside my husband, we would have classes on Saturday mornings we were zone certified. So Dr. Barry Sears' very early work about adding healthy fats into your diet, eating a 40-30-30 diet. We also were talking about vitamin D. And I laugh about this because we were encouraging patients to take vitamin D. They go back to their primary doctor and say, don't take vitamin D. It's fat soluble. Fat soluble things actually build up in the body. They can build up in the liver, and fat soluble vitamins build up. They don't wash away like water soluble vitamins like vitamin B and vitamin C. They could get you really, really sick. Well, now we know that vitamin D is one of the biggest predictors of cancer and heart disease. So 20-some years ago, we were encouraging patients to take vitamin D, and now we know, and fish oils, because Dr. Barry Sears was very big on taking fish oils, because we know cholesterol breaks down into a lot of our anti-aging hormones, our sex hormones, and think about how many people have infertility issues, people have anti-aging issues, right? We talk about anti-aging and fasting, which we're going to get to. And so we started talking about things a long time ago. I know that we would talk about in the 1960s and 70s, we didn't have the infertility issues. We didn't have low testosterone issues. But what we did happen is we started implementing statins. So in the 1980s, it was fine to have cholesterols right around 300 or 295. Then we lowered the cholesterol levels. I have a whole YouTube video on this. And then we saw heart disease go up. We lowered the cholesterols. We upped the statins. We made more statins, and up goes the cholesterol. Up goes heart disease deaths. Then we lowered the cholesterol level again from 295 to 274 to 249 to 224. Up go the statin prescriptions and other prescriptions, but also up goes heart disease. So I'm not going to take a long time on that, because you can just use your computer and you can find those answers right there for you. But what I want to really share with you is most of the time when we use things in practice, we want it to be as progressive as we could be. We were doing acupuncture back in the early 1994, 1995, 1996. We were getting certified to do acupuncture in our practice because we knew the benefits of actually balancing the body. As functional practitioners, what we do is we look for the one in balance of the body. We didn't just say, oh, you have a headache because you're low on Motrin. It could be maybe you had a hormone imbalance or a food sensitivity or low magnesium or maybe low on water. So when we start looking at that, we wanted to be, again, as progressive. We use lasers in our clinic. We use acupuncture, a lot of different tools that maybe you might not find in just a standard culture, standard Western medicine, so to speak. So I always told my patients back in the day that I want to be functionally fit at 50. Well, now I'm over 50, but when I was in my 30s and 40s, functionally fit at 50, that means I want to be able to go snow skiing, water skiing. If my kids said, hey, Mom, let's go ice skating, and if I happen to become a grandma in my 50s, I wanted to be able to play at the highest level with my grandkids. I didn't want to not participate in life because I wasn't functionally fit, which means my core was strong, my legs were strong, and seeing my mom suffer from rheumatoid arthritis, seeing my sister did not live to be in her 50s, my aunt left 6 children, did not make it to her 50s. I wanted to be that mom or that grandma that could just participate, go scuba diving, go surfing, doing whatever it was to participate with my kids in their 50s. That involved having a healthy diet, having a strong core and strong muscle system, and also being in a state of gratitude or mental, emotionally be able to participate in life. Well, I had a small detour in life, so this is where I get a little nervous and talk about myself, and this is why I'm going to talk about fasting and the reboot. So we have taught fasting in our clinic, and safe fasting, because we have Taekwondo athletes that actually are at the Olympic level, and we knew they had to cut weight, but we wanted to make sure they were cutting weight at the proper level, or wrestlers or cheerleaders or divers, and make sure they were cutting it at the right level and they weren't just losing lean muscle mass. So I'm going to say back in the day, 5-10 years ago, when we were helping athletes cut weight, we would use a ketogenic diet to do that, or if there's other health conditions, we would use a ketogenic diet. I've been on a ketogenic diet several different times throughout my life, either to just join a patient on their journey or for my own health benefits. I had a candida infection after my 4th child, was on a ketogenic diet for a year, participating in a triathlon, a marathon, was on a ketogenic diet just to increase my performance after following some of Dr. Finney's work and some Dr. Maffetone's work. I wanted to just increase my performance. But knowing what it could do for your body, I wanted to share with other patients. But it's hard to do if you've ever tried the ketogenic diet. So as you're joining us, I do want you to know this is absolutely meant to be shared. Please let me know where you're coming from. If you're watching this on replay, drop a 2 down. This is, again, meant to be shared a little bit more about my journey. Generally, I don't share much about myself, but just educate on the questions that you share. But where my journey really started with at the ketogenic journey. So we taught the Barry Sears work in our clinic. Then we moved to low carb, high fat, then the ketogenic journey. But in 2014, I had a skiing accident. I crushed my right ankle. I knew the ketogenic diet would actually preserve lean muscle mass. So I was in my late 40s at the time. I knew I was in really good shape because, again, I wanted to be functionally fit. I wanted to be able to ski those black slopes or go water skiing with my kids or, jump out of an airplane, whatever they wanted to do, I wanted to do with them. I am the mother of 4 amazing young men, ages 17 to almost 25. And so I just wanted to go play hard and be participating with them as much as I could. So I was in really good shape when I was skiing that day. March 16th of 2014, again, I crushed my ankle. So when they did surgery and said, you know what, you're going to be non-weight bearing for 6 weeks. And then you probably won't be back to kickboxing or running up to 9 months. And this was again in 2014. So I had to digest that for a minute or two. And then I said, you know what? How can I help my patients do this? Oftentimes I hear reasons why people can't participate. Maybe they had a knee done or bunion surgery or maybe some other reason why they can't participate. So I said, I'm going to help people. I'm going to do exercise every day in Facebook or in my clinic and show them if you have a reason that maybe you're missing a leg or maybe you're having knee surgery or bunion surgery or shoulder surgery, how can you still participate, keep your body nice and healthy, but you can still stay in shape and have movement, because those 3 phases of life are, again, chemical, right? We have chemical stress in our body, or nutrition stress, which is your diet or chemicals you're exposed to, the mental emotional, which is that gratitude piece. And then we also have our functional fit motion, because we know our body actually is a well-balanced triad. So those are the 3 triads of our body. So I was not going to be able to be weight bearing for 6 weeks and then wouldn't be back to probably, they said, kickboxing or running to up to 9 months. Well, what happened about 10 weeks after my fracture is I was not healing properly. And just to let you know, I had all 4 of my young men, my babies, naturally, in and out of the hospital pretty quickly. No anesthesia, no drugs, things like that. So I had them all naturally. I had not had an antibiotic since I had my wisdom teeth out at the age of 18. Had always done things very, very naturally. I used herbs and natural form medicine like acupuncture, laser therapy, chiropractic. Again, all natural things, unless it caused for something like wisdom teeth. I used an antibiotic then, but all natural delivery of my kids. But I end up with a disease called RSD, or reflex sympathetic dystrophy. It's also called chronic regional pain syndrome. It happens to be a disease or a syndrome where there's no actual cure for it. It has the highest pain tolerance, which means on a McGill study of pain, it actually has the highest pain of any disease known. So higher than childbirth, which I'd already done, higher than kidney stones, which I've never had a kidney stone, and it's higher than amputation. So it is the highest pain tolerance. It's also known as the suicide disease, which I don't like to mention because suicide is never an option. It's known as a suicide disease because the pain never goes away. Things like water can feel like acid to your skin. Things like even wind or air can actually feel like burning or bruising to your skin. I know, like the undercarriage of heat, like when you're waiting to get into a car, that can feel like just burning fire to your skin. Clothes can feel like it's actually ripping or tearing your skin. Waistbands can feel like it's just a belt of ice or a belt of knives actually tearing into your skin. So it is no genetic component. Again, there's no cure for this disease. There are a list of different treatments that you can actually try for new treatments. But again, I was diagnosed with this in May of 2014. I had tried everything that was known to the Eastern and Western culture of medicine. I did the Carrick Brain Center and saw the world's top functional neurologist. And so again, the minute that I fell, I'm going to do a little backdrop. The minute that I fell and they said, you're going to be non-weight bearing for 6 weeks, I went right on a ketogenic diet because I knew the ketogenic diet was the most efficient diet that there was, or lifestyle. It preserves lean muscle mass. It gives 30% more oxygen. So for healing, and knowing that I was close to 50 years old, I was actually 48 when I fell, 47, 48, I knew that it actually delivered more oxygen per tissue than glucose. So I know I wanted to get more oxygen to the tissue to actually heal as fast as possible. I wanted to preserve lean muscle mass because once you get over the age of 25 or 27, women lose 0.25% of lean muscle mass every single year. So we start losing lean muscle mass even on the healthiest diet. I also actually squeezed in my intermittent fasting because I wanted my body to heal. I wanted to make sure I had metal now in my body, which I hadn't had before. So I was having contamination. I had metal, I had stitches, I had surgery, I had anesthesia in my body. I wanted my body to make sure it could detox those out. So I also added in, again, a tighter intermittent fasting window. I've got videos on intermittent fasting. If that's new to you, on my YouTube channel, which is Ask Dr. Heather, free videos to go watch. So intermittent fasting. Then I also added in some fasting windows at least once or twice a month. So I do anywhere from about a 72 to 96 hour of fasting. I didn't do a dry fasting because a dry fasting is no water at all. I had an accident in Colorado, which is altitude, which I knew I had to have water back in my body to help wash out all those things that had entered my body, such as anesthesia, and now I've got metal in my body. And then I knew I had to add essential reactive minerals and electrolytes. Electrolytes are essential for our body. Electrolytes plus water equal electricity for our body. So for my body to heal, I had to let that happen. And the duration really depended on what was happening with my blood work. So we know the first 24 hours, our body gets rid of glucose, which is toxic for our body. Then our body actually increases human growth hormone, which means that tissue that was cut into when they're putting the pins and screws and everything else in my body is actually going to help that repair with that increase of growth hormone or human growth hormone. I'm sorry, I'm talking fast because I'm nervous when I talk about myself. So let me breathe. Breathing. So we knew that you increase naturally, women increase 1,300% the first 24 to 48 hours of human growth hormone, and you don't have to have surgery to do that. That can be normally on yourself. And then men actually increase 2,000%. Again, I have a longer video on that. But at 72 hours, your body actually starts increasing and getting rid of your own body's white blood cells. Why is that good? Because your white blood cells, as they mature, start to gather toxins and debris. This is called autophagy. It's a natural cleaning process of your body. Just like you naturally brush your teeth every day, your tongue turns over every few days, your colon turns over every several days, your skin, as you actually do dry brushing, that turns over every few days. You want your body to also turn over. You want those old dead white blood cells to actually turn over and process and to make new ones. That happens throughout our days and throughout our lifetime because there's a certain lifetime that each white blood cells and red blood cells live. So I wanted to make sure those were turning over, and my body was very efficiently doing those. I did that through fasting, and I did that through intermittent fasting every single day. And so I was doing this in the time of doing after I fell, and then that was 2014, and I did several other treatments throughout there. I was doing acupuncture, I was doing laser work, and the disease just continued to progress for some unknown reason. Again, I was very healthy. I did all the genetic testing. I know I'm talking about myself a little bit more. I was having trouble getting my body into ketosis. I was calculating all my macros. However, knowing that RSD is the highest pain disease out there, that I was having trouble staying in ketosis. I was counting my minerals, but I would be either upset because I wasn't in ketosis. I'd go to bed in ketosis. I wouldn't sleep very good. And because cortisol, which is our body's energy, has a lot to do with our fight or flight, has a lot to do with our pain response. So I'd have a pain response. I'd be out of ketosis. I would be mad that I wasn't in ketosis. I wanted to protect that lean muscle mass. And then I try again. And then like, okay, did I oversleep? Did I undersleep? Was it one extra set of broccoli? Do I have a hidden allergy somewhere? Is it the metal that's in my leg and my body? Is it the anesthesia that I had during surgery? So I was always trying to be the detective, figure out why am I not staying in ketosis? And then I get in ketosis and it wasn't high enough to make me feel like an Energizer bunny like I had felt in the past when I was training for marathons or doing it after my fourth baby. So that was 2014. I'd struggled with that through most of 2014. Then I tried some other just kind of, I would say, experimental therapies they were using out there that didn't work. So I tried the last therapy that there was to work through the RSD Foundation. And then I got a call from someone I had worked with before on the KC Fitness magazine. I had been the medical project director for the meals and planning for The Biggest Loser, so to speak. And she said, and I was teaching a low carb, high fat diet for the participants in this. And she was the one teaching 30 egg whites on a piece of toast and, the chicken breast, the white chicken breast, no skin, boil it, broccoli, no butter. Anyway, she would remember several years ago that I had said, you need to have healthy fats. This is how people lose fat. It takes fat to burn fat. It takes meat to burn fat. So this is how we lose fat. Moving fast forward, she said, okay, I have been following your journey. I've seen a little bit of your journey on Facebook, and I have beta hydroxybutyrate in a powder. Well, I'm a farmer's girl from Kansas. I've always believed in supplementation. My dad always studied the water content, the soil content. I watched my dad pick up the earth, smell the earth, feel it, figure out when are we gonna plant. We talked about crop rotation. We talked about no-till rotation, no-till farming. If you're farming at all, you know what that means about rotating the crops, making sure they don't get nutrient deficient. We know that we used to have 18 inches of topsoil, and now we only have 2 inches of topsoil. My dad would talk about the bees, the quality of the bees, where are the bees going, what the water is doing. So I knew how important the trace minerals were as a physician and as studying the human body for our body, and knowing that we weren't getting those based on what the soil content was and based on what was happening with the toxins and the non-GMO products. So knowing that that may be also a problem why I was not getting into ketosis, just wasn't getting the elements. My gut was off based on all those things we had talked about. Again, even to be a mom and a doctor of 4 kids is enough stress for people not to get into that amazing state of ketosis where you feel like the Energizer Bunny. So she said, I have beta hydroxybutyrate. I said, okay, send it over, bring it over. So she had a couple samples, and I said, okay, send it over. So she brought it over to me, and I said, okay, I know this is how I had been in ketosis before, a good state of ketosis, knew I was supposed to feel. So I said, let me have some. This was 2015, after the other treatments had failed or had not been successful. So, and this was the early days before Prove It had launched any exogenous ketones. It was an invite only. You got them in a little powdered bag. You had to order like 75 servings. It took like 10 weeks to get them. So once I started introducing it into my body, I started sleeping better because I was not sleeping due to pain. Even the sheets touching my legs felt like a piece of glass touching my body. So I started using the ketones in 2015. Then my mom, who had a diabetic, she had struggled through some cancer episodes, Hashimoto's, some other health disease. I talked about her having migraines most of her life. And so I started giving to my mom. My mom started noticing that she was feeling better. Her energy was level. She was moving much better. She was getting on the treadmill much longer. Again, having much better energy. I was sleeping much better. My moods were getting much better. So all those things started to escalate. I was still practicing. You'll notice in ketosis that you actually drink a lot more water. So moving forward, I was still practicing my intermittent fasting. I was still using MCT oils, which were hard to get back in 2014, 2015. I was blessed to be part of an education specialist and help Prove It with her FAQs. So when you go to theproveitnow.com, I'm blessed to be help answer some of those very simple questions. What are ketones? They're simply an energy source. And now excited to have the Reboot Kit. So when we launched the Reboot Kit, I actually was blessed to be part of that team to help really educate people what it is. Well, and then again, when I'm kind of all over the place, but I want to move forward quickly because I don't want to take all your time. But my husband and I had been really praying, what's the next step for my health? I kind of plateaued between 2018, 2017, really kind of plateaued. I was still in a wheelchair. I was unable to walk, but I was still able to talk. I still had a lot of fatigue days. I was able to go to the clinic, able to do Facebook Lives, but still having some struggles where it was really hard to shower some days, just being real with you guys, where water was still really, really hurtful to my body, still really had a lot of weakness. Again, only able to get around on my motorized chair if you saw me. I know Kat's on here. We talked about racing. So Kat, a big inspiration to me, and we're going to have a walk off to see who can walk farther. So anyway, had been praying a lot to do. We talked about some options in Germany, talked about some options in Florida, options in Mexico, but a lot of those were just really financially straining and nothing really called to our heart. And then again, just praying for what was our next step. It had to be 3 someones actually had brought a study that the Dutch had done and said, symposium said, there's this study going on about amputation and CRPS, or chronic regional pain syndrome. I'd like to have you look at that. So I actually got a hold of that research. It's a very long a research page, and I sent it to my functional neurologist, which is Dr. Carrick. He's an amazing neurologist, global neurologist. I spent 3 weeks with him over the past 3 years, and he said, you know what, if your legs are still glowing, let's go check it out. Because honestly, they had projected in 2014 that at the rate of the progression of the syndrome, I only had about 29 months to live. I was on palliative care in 2014. Dr. Carrick said, you know what, let's go check it out. I'd also called my neurosurgeon who had put my spinal cord stimulators in. So I have 2 spinal cord stimulators in that were put in my back in my spine in 2015, April and December. And I called my my neurosurgeon. He said, absolutely, let's take a look at this. This research is up and coming. I called my physiatrist here at KU Med Center. He goes, absolutely, let's take a look at that. So, when you talk about everything lining up together, everything lined up together, the orthopedic surgeon who does knee down only amputations said, you're absolutely a right candidate for this. I knew what the options were. So April 2nd, actually I saw them all on January 28th. We had a whole team meeting January 20th of 2019. I think if you'd have said this in 2017, I would have said no way. So they all met in January 2028 or 2019, and they said, we have an opening in 10 days. Are you ready to go? And I said, you know what? No, I want to do some prehab, because if I'm going to be up and walking, get ready for a prosthesis, I need to get my shoulders stronger. I'd had some issues with my left knee because that's what I'm bearing all my weight on. I want to get that fixed, and I want to do 2 cycles of fasting. So I want to do the reboot 2 cycles over. They said, okay, well, we're going to do that. So I moved that date back to April 2nd. That gave me time to do 2 cycles of rebooting. So what does that mean? So remember, we talked about the concentration of the soil being deficient in a lot of minerals. So what that gave me time to do is I actually used the Prove It's Reboot Kit that has minerals in there. It has an upgraded electrolyte system. It has Signal OS, which has a lot to do with our fasting and our aging. Because we know when we start talking about inflammation regulates the aging process in our body. Anytime you undergo surgery, it's aging, especially when you're amputating a limb. So I had a question there. So Kat says, sign me up. Yeah, so if you want more questions, please answer whoever you shared this page with, or send a message to me, because I definitely want to help you if this is something for you. But as we grow, everyone wants to slow down the aging process. They want to function at their highest age. Well, controlling inflammation is how we actually regulate that aging phase. And knowing that when you undergo something like an amputation, for me, it actually increased or slowed down my aging process, because it slowed down the rate of what the syndrome was doing. So after my amputation, April 2nd, I did 2 separate reboot sessions through that, which I did for about 72 hours. I came out of the reboot. I listened to my body. When I was hungry, I ate. But the reboot it has all the elements in there. It has a ketone body, so I still fed the mitochondria. It has the broth, which has the additional protein in there, some additional calcium in there, some additional amino acids in there. It has the electrolytes in there, which actually is upgraded electrolytes. It has some creatinine in there and some vitamin D, so it actually supercharges those mitochondria. So knowing it was a little bit of a stressful time, we talked about the mental emotional component. Just imagine this: if you knew you were going to have your leg amputated off, there's a little bit of emotional complex going on with that. But I was so excited to have the freedom and have my leg, which had been a dysfunctional leg for 5 years, off of my body, so the rest of my body could heal and move on in my body and live life at a higher level. And so I always say, let my pain be my purpose. So let's get my dysfunctional leg off. I want to make sure my body could function at the highest level, be ready for a prosthetic, be ready to heal and move forward. I wanted that 6 weeks time so I could do 6 weeks of that reboot fasting period. But I knew that I had to have the products that were in the reboot kit to do that successfully. We don't have the soil that we have, so even buying the highest quality of foods going into that or making my own bone broth was not going to be as great as actually having what the Prove It products have in there. So somebody said, well, why did you pick that date? I picked that date because that's what worked metabolically for my body based on what the reboot was. So I had that amputation on April 2nd, and things have gone amazing. So I've had a lot of people ask me, what came out after that? So what happens is that the disease is still in with me. It's like if someone has cancer and say you have cancer in your big toe or your thumb, cut it off. There's still that chance that it could come back, right? Because your body knows how to make that. Well, with RSD or CRPS, your body still has it. So yes, my body still has that. And any trigger, any trauma can actually stimulate that to come back in any part of your body at all. So what we try to do, myself and my RSD, is we try to live harmonious, which means we try to keep the stress down. That's why I'm doing on Ask Dr. Heather a 30-day gratitude channel, a 30-day gratitude challenge. And that's why I say for everybody, I think everybody should do this. What's that say? It says, don't give up, never give up. There's days that are better than others for me. I'm sure that's true for you, whether you're trying to lose some unwanted fat. Maybe you're training for a marathon and you just didn't hit those times. Maybe you're actually trying to gain weight. Maybe you're trying to balance out your thyroid. Maybe you're trying to get pregnant. Maybe you're trying to ovulate. Maybe you're trying to increase your testosterone. Maybe you're trying to actually decrease your anxiety. Maybe you're trying to have insomnia. You're just trying to sleep better. I know we're all actually having some type of health challenge or get rid of the fatigue. Ask yourself 3 things. Am I breathing? Am I breathing properly? There's a lot of breathing apps that you can download for free. Am I drinking enough water? right? So just start with enough water, which is at least half your body's weight. Am I eating the highest quality of food that I can? It's not about being perfect. It's about eating the highest quality of food. Did you pick up a Snickers? Did you consciously pick up a Snickers? And if you did, this is not a Snickers. Just say, you know what? I'm going to forgive myself. I'm not going to shame or blame, and I'm going to move on. And then you need to actually add that gratitude piece in there. If you go to bed saying, you know what? My hair looked pretty good today, and I love seeing the hummingbird outside of my feeders. If you have that positive mojo going into your brain when you go to bed, studies show that you create neuroplasticity. It's kind of like it takes 100 atta girls to take away one naughty girl or a bad girl. It's true. When you go to bed with those positive things, because sleep is so important for your brain, it does wonderful things for the rest of your body. So when we talk about diet and fasting and regulation of our genes, I know that RSD has nothing to do with genes, or so far as they've discovered, there's no genetic component to it. But when we start talking about diet or lifestyle, I like to say lifestyle instead, and we talk about gene regulation and fasting and aging, I've never met a patient over 20 years that said, hey, I'd like to age really quickly, unless you're like a 13-year-old girl who'd like to be 18, right? But as a person, nobody says, I like to be more tired than I am. I am just tired of being, more tired. Or I would just, again, I like to age super quickly. No one says that. Everyone's trying to slow down that aging bus. Everyone's trying to have an abundance of energy, an abundance of happiness, an abundance of joy. How does that start? It starts with breathing. It starts with right water. It starts with putting amazing food into your body. Maybe it's cravings that you just can't control. Maybe you just can't get to sleep. Well, when you start introducing ketones, when you start doing a reboot once a month, what that does, it takes away the cravings, because what happens is every time sweet things take your tongue signals your brain. It goes, oh, there's that sugar. I love sugar. We all know how addicting sugar is. You can just put sugar addiction into Dr. Google. And FYI, if you're new to Ask Dr. Heather, that's why they call it Dr. Google. It will give you a whole bunch of information of how addicting sugar is. It's actually more addicting. Richard, I will get back with you on that 10-day reboot. So it's actually a 60-hour keto reboot, but I'll get back with you on our 10-day keto kickstart. So message me and I'll get back with you on that. So today, really what my goal was, is I really wanted to just share a little bit more. I've had a few thousand people join Ask Dr. Heather. I've had a lot of people on my private page on Heather Duracard and say, what's happening? I've had amazing friends. Lisa came over and brought me amazing bison burgers. And she had just said, can you help me better understand? And she's not the only one, because she said, with this RSD, like I thought once they amputate your leg, and this isn't the only one, so I'm not calling out just Lisa. I had another friend ask me, I thought the whole thing was going to go away, kind of like cancer. If you cut it out, doesn't it go away? I will forever live with RSD in my body. It can go into remission. That's what we pray for every day. We also pray for that God uses my body as He needs it. So for me to be a source of information for someone going through any type of health challenge, whether it is weight loss, whether it is weight gain, whether it is diabetes, that I want to hopefully help you find the tools and resources. And you can look at our manual that we made, our little flyer that we made for Cardin Center for Wellness over 20 some years ago. It said, we want to help you find the tools and resources to optimize your life and live the best journey that you can, or help you on your health journey. And this was back before we even had internet, before we had Instagram, before we had social media, before we had Facebook. That's what we've always wanted to do. We either want to help you find the tools and be the connector, or actually deliver those tools to you. And so people say, why, when you're going through all these health challenges yourself, why are you still doing Facebook Lives? Because I knew as a little girl, I was supposed to help people. And, I talk about this. I think I had 1,000 hours of Special Olympics before I even left high school, because I just love helping people. I don't know how not to help people. I don't know how to not give up. And people say that all the time, but I don't know how. So I'm super blessed to be on here. And I've had a lot of people saying, well, you haven't been on very often, because I'm practicing what I preach. When I've had a healing crisis, like an amputation, and then about 6 weeks after I was actually wearing my prosthesis, I was actually back on the rowing machine. I was back on the assault bike. I was back in the gym. I was back up and cooking with my kiddos. Still haven't driven yet. And then I actually was having some issues. I had a couple little micro fractures come off of my bone, because I've been in a wheelchair for 5 years, and they'd actually lodged in the tissue in my leg. So I had to go back and have a revision, and then they thought they had a bone infection, so they actually had to reopen it. So that caused some more trauma to my leg, and then I fell 3 weeks ago. It's craziness. So those traumas all lead to that. So how do you handle that when it happens? You have to calm down your body. Calming down your body means get off social media and then do something like a 30-day gratitude channel. Because even when I do a Facebook Live, I still get nervous. My husband's like, I thought you were going to be done with that Facebook Live. I'm like, I was making notes. I made all these little notes here, lots of good little notes that I don't think I even got half of them, because I wanted to talk about, playing life at your highest level. Sharing is caring. So everybody has a story, and everybody's story story matters. So it's not about, I had somebody say, well, I asked them how they were. I'm like, hey, how's it going? Like, well, nothing compared to you. It's not a comparison game. I truly want to know, how are you doing? It's, what's going on with you, what's happening with you. It comes from a point of caring and from loving and from sharing, and everybody's stories matter, and your stories matter. Whether you got a terrible mosquito bite in a really bad place, or you have big toe-itis, it all matters. Or maybe your first day of school didn't go very well, or you're missing your kiddo that went off to college for the first time. Everybody's stories matter. So I just want to thank you guys for hanging on here. I know it's super winded, but I've gotten a lot of questions about people like, okay, what's going on? I see these pictures. I saw you up on an assault bike. I saw you wearing a prosthesis. Like, what's that? And then people like, somebody came up to me and said, I think I know you, look kind of familiar. I'm like, well, I'm Dr. Heather. I have a Facebook page and a YouTube channel on Instagram, but they're not super professionally done. They're just me and my phone. Like, no, that's not it. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's not it. I think it's because I was in a wheelchair or crutches with a prosthesis or an amputee, and like, tell us more about that. So this is my question to you. Oftentimes I have people just submit questions. So I have a running list of questions that once I get 4 or 5 questions in, I just pop on and help answer those, whether it's about adrenals or about thyroid or about diabetes, or about hormones, or about infertility, or about migraines, or pituitary issues, or sprains, or strains, or things like that, or food ideas. A lot of those you guys can find. They're on actually Ask Dr. Heather. My blog is up, back and running. There's over 1,000 recipes, or 100% of them are gluten-free. There's only about 1 to 2% that have dairy in them. They all have a dairy alternative. So that's AskDrHeather.net. It's 100% free. Just sign your email in there to start your day in the right way. I have a low carb, high fat, ketogenic food list that I go from. If it's low carb, you just simply eat more carbohydrates. And if you want to keep it keto, you just lower the carbohydrates. So it is an autoimmune friendly list you can choose from. Again, totally free to start your day in the right way. It has my 3 favorite breakfast options there, which you can eat any time of the day. I know I didn't get back to a lot of the questions here. And Tony, I don't know what group you're asking about. I probably mentioned a whole bunch. I am also one of the co-chairs of Low Carb Keto KC. You can find that group as well. So I'm going to jump off now. I see my son Isaac here hanging out in the wings waiting to talk to me. So I'm going to jump off and go see what he is up to on this Saturday evening. But I want you guys to have all an amazing evening. I will jump back on here and see if I can help answer those questions. But thank you guys for joining me. My last question is, I have a lot of people. So my Instagram page is Ask Dr. Heather. People who, I'm just actually trying to do a journal more of my amputation journey. It's called AmpuMom Keto. AmpuMom, because I'm a mom first, Keto Doc, because I am doing a ketogenic journey. That's on Instagram. So AmpuMom Keto Doc, I'll post that here. And that's more of just my journey as I've gotten up better, as I'm trying to get back into my shrinker now after I've had this last fall. Just sharing some of those challenges. I think people want to know, like, what happens. And I'm learning the same way, like after they do amputation, what happens and that kind of stuff. It's been kind of a nice learning curve, and really getting some amazing support. So thank you guys all for joining me on this amazing Saturday night. Have a really nice, safe weekend. Everyone in Florida, I ask just blessings that you all get safe and get away from Dorian. My son lives in West Palm Beach. He has left the area. He has boarded up his house. So I'm so thankful he has moved north with some friends. Has gone that way because he is in the West Palm area. And anybody else in the area, please move north that way. And again, blessings to everybody. Thank you again for joining me. Let me know if you have some questions, because Ask Dr. Heather, this page is here to help you actually answer your questions about current health issues, or questions that maybe you may be confused on with all the social media going on. Maybe there's a recipe you want help with. Again, tons of recipes on AskDrHeather.net. And again, you guys have an amazing evening. Thank you for joining me.